Welcome to CED Mosbah's online video instructional series. This is session 1, flashing and going online with a controller over Ethernet and serial connection. Hey everybody, this is Bill Smith, CED Mosbah. Just in the first installment out of our video series, today we're going to show you how to connect to a ControlLogix controller, both over USB, Ethernet, and serial. To show you how to flash these processors. So straight out of the box, these things won't have addresses or firmware. So we're going to get you started on that. The first thing we're going to do is right here we have our L8 processor. So out of the box, you're not going to have a green light here. You would end up having a red light. That's indicating it's a red flashing light saying that you don't have any firmware. So the easiest thing that we like to do or tell our customers is just get a nice simple printer cable, USB printer cable, and plug it into the front here. And we can get you these cables. If you don't have one, let us know. We can get you a quote on one. And then we're going to plug this other end into a USB port on our computer, and then our computer is going to load a driver. So let's go ahead and do that next. So here we are back over at our computer. Our USB cable is plugged in. The first time you do this, you will see an installer installing the driver for the controller down here, but since I've done this before, it's not going to show up. So what we're going to do is we're going to flash this controller over USB. You could either do that first, or you could go in through links and assign it an IP address and then flash it over the Ethernet, but we're going to go this route and then we'll show you how to change the IP address. So first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to use ControlFlash Plus, which is a new ControlFlash program. So just to get you an idea of what it looks like, some advantages to this: you can flash multiple pieces of hardware at one time. So you can go through, select what you wanted, anything on your network that you want to flash, and it'll flash them simultaneously. But since we're only connected USB, we're only going to see one controller, and that's across our backplane, and that's our L85. So that's all we're going to see on our network. So here it is. It's currently got version 28. We're going to flash it to 31. You can select the latest on computer, and everything that would fill in on this list, you could select over here which devices you want to flash, and you can flash them to the latest on this computer, or you can select which one you want to do. So then we're going to hit next. It's going to give us a warning, and we're going to hit flash. So once this gets rolling, so you can see there's 20 blocks of information that have to go across. This is a big firmware because it's an L85 processor, so there's a lot of firmware there. So we'll see on the other side of this flashing. And here we are with our flash finished and succeeded. So now, as you can see, we have version 31 in the device. So now we are version 31 in our controller. What else I'd like to show you is what I said is we can assign the IP address over USB on this, so we don't have to use bootp anymore. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring up RSLinx. So this eliminates the need for using that bootp server that some of you know and love, but it's a love-hate relationship. So what we're going to do, USB shows up here. You can either use the chassis or USB, but there's our processor. It shows up over the USB. We're going to click on it and right-click and go to Module Configuration and Port Configuration. So this is the same situation as if you were configuring the IP address on an EN2T or ENBT. You come in through links and could do the same thing over a USB. So we're going to go to a static address and put an address in here. And always need a subnet. We're going to click Apply. And there we go. So now we have an IP address on our controller, and we can go ahead and connect via Ethernet, which we'll show you next. Okay, so now we've gone through RSLinx and we set our IP address, and you'll look on here. See, I don't know if you can see it. Every now and then it's going to scroll through. We still don't have a project. Our link is down. We don't have a connection down here. But then it's port A. Here's our 192.168.1.8. So that note tells us the IP address worked fine. We're going to go ahead and plug our Ethernet cable in here, and we're going to go over to our computer. And here we are over on our computer. We still see I still have our USB plugged in the front of the processor. That's okay. We can unplug it or leave it in whatever. But now, in order for our laptop to communicate to that processor, we need to make sure we have a static IP, or at least an IP that will communicate to that processor. So we went down here, and this is Windows 7. It's very similar in 10. But you do is click on your little icon down here, Open Network and File Sharing, and then click on Change Adapter Settings, Local Area Connection, and Properties. And we're going to this Ethernet or Internet Protocol version 4. And see, this is what I need for my office. Probably a lot of you are the same for my office network. You get it automatically. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put a static address in here. 53 is always my go-to. Now, in RS Links, we need to create a Ethernet driver to be able to see that processor. So we're going to go back to Links Gateway or Links Lite and hit Communications and Configure Drivers. And we're going to do this drop down. And there's two here. So there's an Ethernet IP driver. Ethernet IP, if you add that, it'll automatically search for any Ethernet IP devices that are connected to your network. And then the Ethernet devices one, that's the older Ethernet driver where you manually configure what IP addresses you want to look for. We're going to go ahead and add the Ethernet IP driver. You can call it whatever you need to. And then here you want to tell it which network card you want to use. So mine only has wireless. I got a few things for VMware on here, but this is my wireless address, and this is my hardwired one. So I'm going to select that one. This is my hardwired Ethernet card. And we're going to come over and expand that, and there we see. There's our processor. Nothing on the back plane. There's a few. Ooh, there it is. So we have this in a demo chassis, and these are everything in the back plane. So now we could go over, open up Studio, and get online with that controller. All right, so here's our Logix Designer, Studio 5000 Logix Designer. This is a program I created for an L85. It's pretty simple. But in order to get online, we can come up to Communications and our Who Active. And this is going to bring up our Ethernet, or our drivers from RS Links. And here's our Ethernet driver. We're going to expand that, click on here. This is our controller, and we're going to download to our controller. And download. And just let that finish up. And there we go. We're online with our controller. So that's all there is to it. Next, we're going to go ahead and do this with an older controller that still uses serial. Okay, so here we are. We have an L63 processor here. So one of the older, this is an obsolete processor, so it's not the best example to show you, but some of you may have these. This same procedure would go, the same procedure for a Micrologix or a SLC that has serial communications. So you can see the little serial port in here. It's an RS-232 port, the DB9. Something for the, actually we're going to use this cable here. This is a a 9300, I don't know if you can see that part number, USB CBL-CP3. So the old cable that would connect to this was a CP3 cable. Rockwell now has the USB to CP3 version that can be purchased through your local Mosba salesperson. So if this was a Micrologix or some SLCs, they have the round DIN connector, which was the PM02 cable. So same deal, 9300 USB CBL PM02, which is just USB to that little round guy, and we can also get these for you. So all we're going to do is we're going to take our DB9 connector, and we're going to go right into that port, Just like that. And then the other end, we're just going to plug in to our computer. And here we are back over in front of RS Links. I'm going to go ahead and plug our USB cable in. Bear with me, it's on the back of my computer here. There we go. Now again, the first time you plug one of these in, you're going to see the driver installing down at the bottom, but I've used this before. One thing you do want to note is when you install these, before adding the driver in RS Links, you want to come here to your start and right click on my computer. We're going to go to Device Manager. So we're going to go to Properties and then click on Device Manager. Under that Device Manager, what we're looking for is what port that device, so that serial USB cable installed itself on. And in my case, it's on COM7. So we need to remember that. We come back over to RS Links Gateway, and we're going to go to Communications, Configure Drivers. And we're looking for a RS-232 DF1 devices. Add new. Okay. And our COM port is that COM7 that we just looked up. There. And in our case, so PLC channel 0 would be like a PLC 5. And we have SLICs, micros, panel views. And then we're looking for the L5500. So this is ControlLogix and CompactLogix over serial. And then we want to hit Auto Configure. And that's what we want to see. Auto configuration is successful. Now sometimes this will fail and it'll still work. So occasionally if this fails, just go ahead and hit OK, close, and come up and expand it, and you'll still see your processor. That's just a serial issue. It's an old communication. So in this case, we're working just fine. There's our L63. So in this case, we're going to use the older control flash, which is right here, Flash Programming Control Flash. Some of you may be used to seeing more of this rather than the Control Flash Plus. And we're going to click through, we select our L63, and then we're going to find it on our network. And there it is. Hit OK. It's showing it has version 18 on it. The highest these can go is version 20, which is why they're obsolete. They can't go to version 21. So we're going to go ahead and max it out at version 21. Now, something you will notice on serial, this takes a long time. So we're not going to sit here and watch this happen. It's going to take a good 20 to 30 minutes. Serial is a lot slower than USB or Ethernet. So yeah, the same kind of deal applies. When this is done flashing, we would be able to open up our Logix software, communications, use our DF1 driver to go online with our processor. So if you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me, Bill Smith, or Dan Wagner handles our Johnstown, Altoona, and Greensburg offices, and Paul Devers in our Fairmont office. So thank you very much. Once again, thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out future and current videos by subscribing to CED Mosbaugh Electric Supply on YouTube or visiting www.mosbaugh.com/media. Thanks again.